will introduce to you Patrick Errington. Poems by Patrick James Errington appear in journals and anthologies around the world, including Poetry Review, Best New Poets, the Iowa Review, Boston Review, Oxford Poetry, The Fiddlehead, and New Writing Scotland, as well as in two chapbooks, Glean from 2018 and Field Studies from 2019, and in his forthcoming collection, The Swailing, 2023. Patrick is also a translator to and from the French, having translated P.J. Harvey's The Hollow of the Hand, 2017. He's now bringing into English Emile Cioran's Notebooks with New York Review Books and Hamid Tibuchi's poetry collection Veins. Recipient of the Callan Gordon Award from the Scottish Book Trust and finalist, finalist. This is the first time a bio isn't up to date anymore. Winner of the RBC Bromman Wallace Award from the Writers Trust of Canada. I think that deserves a little applause emoji in itself. Well, there you go. Patrick's poetry has also won the Poetry International Prize, the London Magazine Prize, and the Plough Prize, among others. Originally from Alberta, Canada, Patrick now lives in Scotland, where he is a research and teaching fellow at the University of Edinburgh. And of course, I have a little bit of a reflection as well. And the first thing I noticed were your titles, which are a thing unto itself. I think Spooky Action at a Distance is one. After all this small talk, you think there be no weather left is another one. And then the poems, chiseled, structured, formed perhaps to contain some absence within, build around someone or something missing. And there is a sense of self-awareness in these poems. I find myself in this poem as if sent to fetch something. I keep forgetting what. You write in the poem Ars Poetica, without child or song, another one of those interesting titles. Or maybe it's the other way around, and maybe the poems are there to let something in, to open the door, so to speak, to another world where it's often autumn or winter, and elk and deer can appear, or bees, as in this final quote. Softly you wonder if all souls aren't bees battering against the body's windows. So, Patrick, of course, for you the question as well, what is a poem, either one of your own or someone else's, that you're particularly fond of?
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, how do you follow that introduction and that reading? Sonia, that was absolutely stunning. I'm kind of forgot that I actually had to read afterward, and now I'm immediately panicking. The poem that I've been thinking about recently, and is a poem that actually, unlike Sonia's, it's one that I've sat with for quite a number of years now, that I just sort of keep coming back to, and I think it's one of those ones that keeps changing each time I come back to it. And I'll maybe put it in the chat here, the link to it, so you can see it. It's a poem by Linda Gregg, the phenomenal American poet from. It's the very first poem in her very first book from 1981, I believe, and it's called "We Manage Most When We Manage Small," which feels very appropriate these days, I think, with everything going on in the world. I'll maybe just read that. We manage most when we manage small. What things are steadfast? Not the birds, not the bride and groom who hurry in their brevity to reach one another. The stars do not blow away as we do. The heavenly things ignite and freeze, but not as my hair falls before you. Fragile and momentary, we continue, fearing madness in all things huge and their requiring, managing as thin light on water, managing only greetings and farewells. We love a little, as the mice huddle, as the goat leans against my hand, as the lovers quickening, riding time, making safety in the moment. This touching home goes far, this fishing in the air. I don't know what to say about that poem. I think particularly it feels like over the past few years, managing this sense of like just holding things together and managing small. There's something about that. I think maybe for me, I'm often thinking about big picture things and trying to remember, just doing small things is enough, and it's really important to manage those small things. So that
Yeah,
poem has just really struck me and stuck with me.
yeah, it's another beautiful poem. I'm so happy I asked this question because I got gifted two poems that I absolutely love.
Mm.
So thanks for sharing this, and onwards to your own work.
Onwards to my own work, right? Now I've just made the job even harder to follow Linda Gregg's poem as well as Sonia's poems, your introduction, Kathleen Jamie's poem. Oh my gosh, it's a tough job here. Well, you mentioned the poem "Spooky Action at a Distance," and maybe I've been thinking as I was thinking about which poems to read today. I've been thinking about distance and thinking about the weirdness of Zoom readings with people all over the world, but how we can connect through that. There is something about the phenomenon of spooky action at a distance that feels very appropriate to these days. So this one begins with a sort of explanatory epigraph, which I'll maybe just read. In quantum physics, it has been theorized that entangled subatomic particles might somehow affect one another without touching, regardless of the distance between them. Albert Einstein, in disbelief, called it spooky action at a distance. So this is spooky action at a distance. Rain hushing the last of the light. The sort that seems to touch everything. Slate, lip, leaves, as if by touching it might leave one last thing, this time untold. In the last, the word was tender. In the next, spared. In the last, lit flat across the street, I watch a couple wear their worn orbits around each other. He drives, she puts each thing away. Their hands never touch. Silence a tide between. I think of my parents casting themselves like small coins into what seas they wouldn't say. I wouldn't say why I want to tell you this. Outside, a few drops drop in the gutters. My neighbors I'll tell by lamplight and leavings. Bin bags piling on the pavement, post that clots the door. One word, one word, one word. One thing fitting always precisely between, like bird song fits whatever quiet might come after this. Tell me there's just this world between us, that you're there, just on the other side, hands pressed to the cold of it. Can you feel that? Across the street and 3 floors below, a man stoops as he steps out, as if by stooping he might somehow make the drops stop head high. And since I'm in Canada at the moment, I'm drinking a Tim Hortons coffee, just doing the whole cliche thing. For those of you who don't know, Tim Hortons is like the most Canadian thing that you can get. It's what's keeping me fueled over my jet lag. So apologies if I stumble here. So the other poems I wanted to read. So since yeah, I'm still jittery after yesterday finding out about the Bronwyn Wallace Prize, and they've made this like beautiful book of poems, including a bunch of mine. I thought I would read some of those. This one is my only sort of more direct COVID poem, I guess, and until yesterday, I'd never read it aloud to real people out in the real world before, only on screens, and it feels like a particularly screen-based poem, actually. So I'm bringing it back home here. This poem is called Measures of Containment. I'm flickering through yet another dozen odd pictures, posts, reposts, posting, all the things that can be done while staying home. Virtually anything, apparently. DIY, sourdough, stay home, save lives. Each life displayed in its little box, each loss in its careful counted characters. And sometimes I worry that so much can be contained like this in a screen, a home, a poem maybe, the way a body can be said to contain its pain, everything you are in a lifetime, meaning in a word, and for whatever reason I wish and wildly to let it out, just once, let life exceed the body that lives it, let the line, this line maybe, reach just a bit too far to the, but what if I have the word wrong? What if it's not so much in, but maybe through? And by through, I mean less in one side, out the other, less beyond than by way of, or maybe even with. And for whatever reason, I wish and wildly for a way of reaching out to you, a hand with which to tell you that whatever it is, whatever you are going through right now, you will live through this. I'm keeping an eye on the time here. I'm going to do just two more poems. Thinking about Canada, these poems end up sort of all orbiting a kind of semi-invented Canada, a part of Alberta where I grew up, which is very flat and prairies with mountains in the distance. It's, that landscape somehow just sort of keeps occupying these poems. And even though some of the details of my life in Scotland creep into them, it's now this sort of weird hybrid space. Yeah, so this poem is kind of in a slightly hybrid space, speaking about my students, as a few of them are in the audience. This is not about you, don't worry. The poem begins with an epigraph, which is from Andrew Joron, really fascinating poet, and the quote is, "That is to say, language is not predicated on the existence of meaning, but is an unpredictable outcome of a world that produced first fire, then birds." And this poem is called Augury. It doesn't mean that I miss you somehow less these days. These days growing numbers like new leaves, there won't, I know, be leaves not for months yet. The creek bed I cross to class tenders its stones to sky. Shop windows tender frost. Means today will be short, tomorrow shorter. Means just a little more of heaven for whatever birds are left between the branches. I don't know anymore who I mean this for. Mean as in intend. In some vast distance, a man watches fire tend his field. In class, my students tend to elsewhere, eyes flocking up and away. I can read the signs, connect the dots, trace the flight paths, patterns of migration. I would call them back, but I won't. Every hour on the hour they rise, a rush of feathers, thank yous, see yous, sorries, I know. Every minute to measure, longing to line. It's okay, I want to say, as bags swing, jackets flap, the doors stammer, it's all okay. I want so much to mean it. More the gesture than words, a small species of tenderness, a reaching out that might be letting go. And keeping on the theme and returning to spooky action at a distance, since it is about two entwined particles, I actually wrote a second poem called Spooky Action at a Distance. And so this is the second particle of spooky action at a distance. And I just wanted to say thank you to Mila, to Stephanie, to all of you for coming out today. It's wonderful to have these kinds of events, these spaces of connecting people, despite significant distances between us all. That I think that's the glory of poetry, is the fact that it can do this kind of work. But normally, I guess, as poets, we don't get to see that happen. This is a chance to actually sort of feel it. So thank you, and yeah, a wonderful event. And I'm looking forward to reading or to hearing the open mic poets in a little bit. So this is Spooky Action at a Distance, the second particle. For days it seemed like it would rain, though it never did. the fraying October sky, all agrasp as if in a foreign language, as if soil and slate and skin were terms it had learned once in grade school, maybe, and unpracticed, forgot. I'm forgetting who it was I meant to tell this to. The words coming bit by bit apart against the air. I can feel whole vocabularies of you just there, just past this language, this line. I've heard it said that one particle can feel another turning even on opposite ends of the universe, and I hold to that as something like hope, as if somehow just wondering might be enough. Days like these, I can't help but wonder about my mother, about the wince that flickered across her face when I raised my hand, leaving to wave goodbye. She used to tell me how much I'd come to look like him, my father, and I do, that we left him our whole lives ago, as if I'd grown like split wood into the wound of him. Outside, elms fit each flaw in the sky. The sky tonight is clear and irrevocable, each and everything laid out beneath it like heirloom silverware. Tell me, whoever you are, tell me you've saved one small vow of you. In a window across the street, a woman I'll never meet lights a single naked lamp, and all the stars go out. Thank you all very much.